I'm Mark Hicks, and this is the first in a series on how to keep your bass boat alive. Now, I didn't have a bass boat to keep alive, so last winter I bought this $4,500 used boat. It's got a 1990 hull, a 1999 outboard motor, a 150. My goal is to get this boat ready to fish the first Northern Open of 2014 at Douglas Lake, and I've got less than 2 months to do it. So before I get into the steps of rebuilding this boat, I want to talk to you about what I did before I bought it to make sure it was worth my investment of time and money. These are things you should do if you are looking into buying a used bass boat yourself. So let's start with the outboard motor. Now, before I even went to look at this boat, I called Schwartz Marine. They're about 30 minutes away, have some excellent mechanics, and they used to sell this motor, the XR6, so they know quite a bit about it. And since the motor's out of production, usually a marine mechanic will give up the goods on any issues the motor had, so you know what to look for. You know, they're out to sell the new ones, not these old ones. What they told me was this motor is strong and reliable. It's really a good motor with very few issues, so I was happy to hear that. The downfall with the motor, as with any carbureted motor before fuel injected, it burns a lot more gas than the newer fuel injected motors. I'd love to have a nice fuel efficient 4-stroke on here, but that's not in the budget, so this one's going to have to do it. The thing is, I need to know if this old motor was still up to snuff, if it would still do the job for me. So I'm going to take you through the steps I went through to check this motor out to make sure it was worth my money. The first thing you want to do is line up directly behind the propeller and spin it. The blades are moving, but in the center, this should not wobble whatsoever. If it does, the shaft is bent and you've got a serious problem. Probably enough that you don't want to buy this boat. Okay, the next thing you want to check is the oil in the lower unit, and you get to that by loosening this screw right here. And you don't want to get a lot of oil, just a drop, so you can get a look at the color of it. Just back her out easy. There we go. Now, if the oil is brownish or milky in color, water's gotten in there, and you've got another problem that may make you want to think twice about buying this boat. I found out that the previous owner had winterized this outboard, which is a good thing. He'd fogged the engine, he treated the gas, and he changed the lower unit gear oil so that I had new gear oil in there. So I could not see what the old oil looked like. Fortunately, he had saved the oil in a 2-liter pop bottle so I could look at it, and it was just fine. The final engine test I'm going to do is critical. It's the compression test. Now, to do this, you need a compression tester, and you're going to need a set of muffs that allow you to run the motor running water to it from a hose. Now, I got both of these on eBay for 30 bucks new, shipping included, so it's a really good investment. Anybody who has an outboard should have these things. Okay, I got my muffs hooked up. The next step is to start the motor and let it warm up. As the engine is warming up, go to the back of the boat and make sure that water is circulating to the outboard. Also, it's a good idea to shift into forward and reverse to make sure the gears are shifting properly. Okay, now that the engine's warmed up, we're going to remove the spark plugs and test each cylinder one at a time. So we get in here. Remove this spark plug. Now we take the compression tester and we just screw it right in where the spark plug was. And we're just going to do it hand tight. You want to make sure you pull the kill switch or disconnect the battery first so the engine won't start when you do this. Alright, the compression for this turned out rated about 120, which falls within the range for this engine. The compression range, an acceptable compression range for this XR6 is 110 to 135 psi. But even more important is that the cylinders have to be close in whatever their compression is. In other words, if there's more than a 15-pound difference between these cylinders, there's something wrong with this motor and you're going to nix the deal. So they need to be pretty close. So instead of going through all these on film, I'm just going to show you the results, and you're going to see that it turned out pretty good for me. First cylinder I tested was rated 120 pounds PSI. Second one was about the same. Third one maybe 121. Fourth one maybe 121 again. Next one was about 124, as was the last one, 123 or 24. Sweet. All right, now it's time to check out the boat, and the most crucial area is right here in the transom area. And I'm looking here, I don't see any stress cracks in here. This is very good. And also up here, these are critical places. It's looking pretty good, so I'm happy about that. Now bring a piece of cardboard or a mat or something that you can lay down on the ground, because one critical place you want to check is the running pad, the running surface. This is very critical down here. If there's a gouge in here that goes through the gel coat and into the fiberglass, the pressure could actually cause this to delaminate. So I'm down here and I notice I've got a few small places that have been repaired with gel coat, but there's nothing here I can see that's going to give me any problems. So I got a little bit of minor work to do here, but nothing that's going to cost much or give me any problems. Another place to look for problems in chip gel coat is here on the hull, and boy, there's a few minor scrapes here, but it is actually absolutely in surprisingly good shape. So, you know, I'm very, very pleased with that. You also want to check out the bow eye, make sure it's in there good and strong. There hasn't been any damage there. This one looks just fine, so we're good to go. I've looked around the hull and I've seen some minor stress cracks, but nothing that really concerns me. Now, the gel coat on the top of the deck is actually in really good shape for an older boat. It's obviously been undercover. I'm going to have no problems bringing the shine back in this baby, so real pleased about that. However, the gel on the side is kind of dull. UV rays have really worked on it. The good thing is it hasn't gotten into the flake. So if it had, I'd have some real trouble. I'd have some resurfacing to do. But there's enough clear gel. I believe I can bring this back. It's just going to take a little work, a little sweat and toil. But I can afford that. Now I assume with an older boat like this, I was going to have to replace the carpeting. And boy, did I ever assume right. Look at this. I mean, it is just flat worn out. To put some high quality carpeting in here with some good glue and do it right, probably looking at about 300 bucks. You know, I also assumed that I was going to have to replace the seats in such an old boat, but surprisingly, these seats are actually in pretty darn good shape, so I think I'm just going to clean them up and leave them in there. That'll save me a few bucks, pay for that carpeting. The previous owner put aftermarket chair-type seats in here, so they look like a platypus, but I can live with them. They'll do the job. The thing is, I normally don't use a chair seat when I'm tournament fishing anywhere. Anyway, I prefer a pole seat. This boat doesn't have a pole seat, so that's something else I'm going to have to get for the boat. Another project I'm going to have to do with this boat is to get an inset for the trolling motor. You know, once you use a trolling motor that's set even with the deck, you're just spoiled, and you really don't want to stand there perched on top of this foot control pedal. So there's another good project for me to work on. Now, the boat came with a 65-pound thrust Minn Kota motor, which for a boat that's 18 foot 4 inches, which is the size of this boat, it's really adequate for most fishing in inland lakes. However, it's a 24-volt system, and I intend to be using this in Northern Open Bassmaster tournaments where I could be out at Lake Erie and 4 and 5 foot waves. And if you've ever been out of water like that, you know 24 volts just doesn't give you enough power and enough staying power to stay out there for 8 hours on the water. So as much as I like this Minn Kota, I'm going to replace it with a 36 volt Minn Kota motor that'll hold up to real tough tournament conditions on big water. So that's going to be a major expense, but man, it's just something you got to have. Since I bought this boat in the middle of the winter, I didn't have a chance to actually get it on the water to make sure all the pumps were working, but at least you can do is just turn them on and go back and listen in the bilge area, make sure everything's running. Okay, here we are in the bilge area, and hopefully you can hear those pumps running, so we know we're good. You can check out the batteries, make sure everything's clean. Also sniff around, make sure there aren't any gas leaks in here and that your connections are all good. You want to make sure the boat has the pole lights, the running lights, and it does, and I checked these out and they both work just fine, so I'm good to go there. As far as the trailer goes, the tires have quite a bit of tread on them, so I won't have to get new tires. The rims could use a little cleaning up, but nothing major. Where I am going to run into some issues though is right up here. You can see I've got some rust, and there's rust showing up all over the boat. That's going to be a major workover. From what I see, I'm going to have to sandblast this trailer so I can refinish it and do it right. I think I'm going to sandblast it, and then I'm going to have like a truck liner coating put on it. A nice plus with this trailer is that the previous owner put new bunks and new carpeting on the bunks, and he did a really nice job on it. So that's going to save me a lot of trouble. The previous owner put a new winch on there, so that's something I'm not going to have to invest in. And the previous owner also put a nice new jack on there, so that's another thing I have to worry about. Now, to compete in big-time tournaments like the Northern Opens, you have to have the most high-power electronics you can get. And I'm going to put a couple of large Humminbird graphs on here, you know, one with side finding and down finding. That's really important. But this one came with a 595 Humminbird, which is actually a very capable unit. Okay, now you've seen what I did to check out this boat before I bought it. I didn't have a chance to get it out in the water. There was like 18 inches of snow on the ground and all the lakes were frozen over. But I did tow the boat to make sure the brakes were working and all the lights were working and everything checked out. So that ends this segment. The next segment is going to be on what you need to do to your outboard to keep it humming. So see you then.